Hello everyone. Naruto Fix here, back with another amazing What If Naruto fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto's presence changed the love stories of Konoha? Part 1. If you enjoy Naruto stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the journey grow. Now let's head right into today's fanfic. Konoha had always been a village shaped by conflict. Wars decided alliances. Loss decided bonds. Love, more often than not, was something postponed, something people promised themselves they would think about after the next mission, after the next threat. After survival was no longer uncertain. But peace had arrived. Not the fragile kind that trembled at every shadow, but a quiet, steady peace that lingered in the air like a held breath finally released. And in that peace, something unexpected began to happen. Naruto Uzumaki did not change Konoha by proclamation. He changed it simply by being there. Naruto walked through the village early in the morning, hands tucked into his jacket, steps unhurried. The streets were waking slowly. Shopkeepers lifted shutters. Shinobi greeted one another without urgency. Children ran past without fear. This was the world Naruto had fought for. Yet what he didn't realize was how deeply his presence had begun to alter the emotional rhythm of the village. Not through speeches. Not through heroics. Through consistency. Naruto listened when others spoke. He remembered names. He stayed when conversations grew quiet instead of rushing away. He no longer burned with the desperate need to be acknowledged. And that changed everything. Sakura Haruno noticed it first. She stood near the hospital courtyard, reviewing notes while nurses moved around her. Naruto sat nearby on a low wall, legs dangling casually as he talked with a junior medic who looked exhausted. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't advising. He was listening. Sakura watched as the medic laughed softly, shoulders relaxing, before thanking Naruto and walking away visibly lighter. Sakura frowned slightly. That should not have mattered. But it did. Once, Sakura had loved Naruto for his persistence. For the way he never gave up, never backed down, never stopped chasing what he wanted. But now, she saw something different. Naruto no longer chased. People came to him. And in that stillness, something in Sakura's own heart shifted. She realized she had begun measuring love differently. Not by intensity, but by safety. Hinata Hyuga felt the change more quietly. She had always noticed Naruto. That was nothing new. But now, she noticed the effect he had on others. The way people unconsciously mirrored his calm, the way their voices softened when speaking to him. Naruto no longer inspired people to be louder. He inspired them to be honest. Hinata trained alone near the Hyuga grounds, her movements controlled, focused. When she paused to rest, she saw Naruto walking nearby, nodding respectfully to passing clan members without hesitation or pride. He didn't belong to any clan. And yet, he belonged everywhere. Hinata pressed a hand lightly to her chest. Her love for Naruto had once been rooted in admiration and courage. Now, it was rooted in recognition. She saw him. And she knew others were beginning to see him too. Ino Yamanaka experienced it as irritation before understanding. Naruto stood in the flower shop doorway one afternoon, holding a box awkwardly as Ino instructed him where to place it. He followed her directions without argument, without jokes, without trying to impress. That was new. Once, Naruto would have turned this into chaos. Now, he simply helped. Ino crossed her arms, watching him carefully. "You're weird lately," she said. Naruto blinked. Thanks. She sighed. That wasn't a compliment. He smiled anyway. And that smile, unforced, content, caught her off guard. Ino had always been surrounded by attention. Compliments came easily. Desire was familiar. But Naruto wasn't looking at her as something to want or win. He looked at her like a person whose words mattered. And that unsettled her more than attraction ever could. Temari of the Sand saw it with clarity. She observed Naruto from a distance during a joint training session, arms folded, eyes sharp. He wasn't dominating the field. He wasn't leading loudly. He stepped in only when necessary, stepping back just as easily. He's dangerous, Temari muttered. Shikamaru glanced at her. You say that like it's a problem. It is, she replied. People don't fall in love with chaos forever. They fall in love with stability. Naruto laughed at something someone said, relaxed and genuine. Temari shook her head. He doesn't realize it, she said. But his presence is rewriting how people feel about love. Naruto himself felt none of this consciously. What he felt was peace. For the first time in his life, Naruto didn't feel like he was filling a void. He wasn't chasing recognition. He wasn't measuring himself against expectations. He had survived being alone. And because of that, he no longer made others feel lonely when he stood beside them. He sat near the river one evening, watching the water flow steadily past stones smoothed by time. Hinata approached quietly and sat a short distance away, neither startled nor shy. They didn't speak at first. Naruto didn't feel pressure to. That alone felt revolutionary. Naruto-kun, Hinata said softly, do you know why people feel calmer around you now? He tilted his head. Because the war's over. Quote. She smiled faintly. Partly. And the rest? You don't need anything from 'em anymore, she said. So they don't feel like they need to give you anything either. Naruto stared at the river, absorbing that. So, I stopped needing, he said slowly, and people stopped feeling afraid of disappointing me. Hinata nodded. That changes how love grows, she added. Naruto felt something settle quietly inside him. Elsewhere, Sakura walked home under the evening sky, thinking of Naruto not with longing, but with gratitude. Ino closed the shop feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Temari prepared to leave Konoha knowing she had witnessed a rare kind of strength. Love in Konoha was changing. Not because Naruto chose someone, but because Naruto had changed himself. He had become a constant instead of a storm. A presence instead of a pursuit. A place where hearts could rest instead of race. And in that shift, every love story around him began to transform. Slower, deeper, more honest. Naruto Uzumaki had once inspired people to fight. Now, without realizing it, he was inspiring them to love differently. The days passed gently, like pages turning without resistance. Konoha adjusted to peace in small, almost unnoticeable ways. People lingered longer in conversations. Shinobi returned from missions without the sharp edge of urgency in their voices. Even arguments felt softer, less desperate to be won. At the center of many of these subtle shifts was Naruto Uzumaki. Not because he stood out, but because he no longer did. Naruto spent one afternoon helping rebuild a small house near the outskirts of the village. He worked alongside civilians, sleeves rolled up, sweat on his brow, laughing when someone teased him for hammering a nail crooked. He didn't correct them by saying he was a hero. He didn't remind them of what he had done for the village. He just laughed and fixed it. A young woman handing out water paused as she watched him. She had lost her fiancé during the war. Love, to her, had become something painful, something unfinished. Yet watching Naruto, she felt something unfamiliar. Not longing. Reassurance. He wasn't trying to replace what she lost. He wasn't trying to fill her grief. He was simply present. And that presence didn't reopen wounds. It eased them. Sakura noticed how often people left conversations with Naruto calmer than when they arrived. She saw it during her rounds at the hospital. Patients smiled more easily after he visited. Nurses spoke more openly when he sat nearby. Even the silence around him felt supportive rather than awkward. One evening, Sakura found herself walking beside him after a long shift. You know, she said, breaking the quiet, you've become really good at not fixing things. Naruto blinked. Is that bad? She smiled. No, it's rare. Naruto scratched his cheek. I used to think if I didn't fix things, people would leave. Sakura glanced at him. And now I think people just want to be understood, he replied. Sakura stopped walking for a moment, looking at him with something close to wonder. That's when love changes, she said softly. Naruto felt the truth of that settle in his chest. Hinata experienced the change in her own heart. Her feelings for Naruto had once been wrapped in fear. Fear of speaking, fear of comparison, fear of being unseen. Now, those fears had loosened the grip. She walked beside Naruto through the village one evening, steps matched without effort. You don't feel distant, she said quietly. Even though you're calmer. Naruto smiled. I think I finally stopped running. Hinata nodded. That makes people feel safe around you. Naruto looked at her then. Do you feel safe? Hinata didn't hesitate. Yes. The simplicity of her answer struck him harder than any confession could have. Ino felt the shift in a more complicated way. She found herself speaking honestly around Naruto without rehearsing first. She complained without filtering. She admitted doubts she usually buried beneath confidence. And Naruto never used those moments to feel closer. He respected the space they created. One afternoon, she sighed after venting about responsibilities placed on her. You're not going to tell me I'm strong and can handle it? She asked. Naruto shook his head. You already know that. You just wanted to say it out loud. Ino stared at him, then laughed softly. That's unfair, she said. You make emotional things feel simple. Naruto shrugged. They usually are. We just make them loud. Ino walked away later feeling strangely relieved. Love didn't always mean desire. Sometimes, it meant clarity. Temari watched all of this unfold like someone reading the end of a story before reaching the last page. Naruto wasn't changing individual relationships. He was changing expectations. Love in Konoha had once been sharp, born from desperation, war, and loss. People clung tightly because they didn't know how much time they had left. Now, Naruto's presence reminded them that staying didn't have to be desperate. It could be calm. He's not teaching people how to fall in love, Temari thought. He's teaching them how to breathe while doing it. Naruto himself felt the difference most clearly at night. He no longer lay awake wondering who would leave him. He no longer felt the need to be everything to everyone. The village felt steady. One night, he stood on a rooftop watching lanterns glow below. Hinata stood nearby, quiet as always, but no longer hesitant. I think I understand something now, Naruto said. Hinata waited. I don't change people by being strong, he continued. I change them by staying. Hinata smiled softly. That's why their love stories are changing. Naruto exhaled, feeling peace rather than pressure. Love no longer felt like something he had to earn. It felt like something that grew naturally when people felt safe enough to be themselves. And in that quiet realization, Naruto Uzumaki became something rare in Konoha. Not a hero who inspired passion, but a presence that allowed love to heal. Konoha did not change overnight. There were no announcements, no ceremonies, no moments people could point to and say this is when it happened. Instead, the change settled like early morning light, slow, gentle, and impossible to ignore once it was there. And Naruto Uzumaki remained at the center of it, unaware. He spent his days moving through the village with the same quiet consistency. Helping rebuild roofs. Listening to old men complain about aching knees. Sitting with children who talked endlessly about dreams that had nothing to do with shinobi life. Naruto did not hurry these moments. He did not dismiss them as small. That was the difference. For years, love in Konoha had been shaped by fear of loss. People loved intensely, desperately, as if every moment might be the last. They clung because war taught them that hesitation meant regret. Naruto's presence taught them something else. That love did not have to rush. Sakura felt it while treating a young kunoichi one afternoon. The girl had suffered no serious injury, yet she trembled as Sakura wrapped the bandage around her arm. When Sakura asked what was wrong, the kunoichi hesitated before answering. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of dying. of living, and losing people slowly. Sakura paused. Before she could respond, Naruto, who had been sitting quietly nearby, spoke. It's okay to be scared, he said calmly. But you don't have to carry it alone. The girl looked at him, surprised. You don't sound like you're trying to fix it, she said. Naruto shook his head. Some things don't need fixing. Just understanding. The kunoichi exhaled, shoulders relaxing. After she left, Sakura looked at Naruto differently. Once, she had believed love meant intensity, devotion that burned, sacrifice that hurt. Now she saw something steadier. Naruto had changed how pain was held. And that changed how love could grow afterward. Hinata noticed the change in the Hyuga compound. Conversations between family members lasted longer. Silences were no longer filled with tension. When someone spoke, others listened fully instead of preparing responses. Naruto didn't belong to the Hyuga. Yet his influence reached even here. Hinata trained in the courtyard, movements fluid, breath steady. Naruto watched from a respectful distance, not correcting, not instructing. Just present. Afterward, he handed her water without a word. You don't watch like you used to, Hinata said softly. Naruto smiled. How did I used to watch? Like you were afraid to miss something, she replied. Now, you trust the moment. Naruto considered that. I guess I learned I don't need to hold on to everything. Hinata nodded. That makes love gentler, she said. Naruto felt the truth of that sink into him. Ino experienced the shift in her shop. Customers lingered longer now, not because they were indecisive, but because conversation felt easier. People talked about hopes instead of losses, relationships instead of regrets. One afternoon, Ino found Naruto sitting near the doorway, quietly rearranging fallen flower petals. You don't usually hang around, she said. Naruto shrugged. It feels calm here. Ino smirked. You're changing the vibe everywhere, you know. Naruto laughed. Pretty sure that's not my fault. Ino watched him carefully. You make people feel like they don't have to impress you, she said. That's rare. Naruto paused. I spend most of my life trying to impress people. I don't want anyone else to feel like that. Ino didn't respond right away. For the first time, she realized that admiration didn't always need direction. Sometimes it simply existed, and that was enough. Temari saw the long-term effect clearly. She watched couples argue less sharply. She noticed shinobi speaking honestly instead of posturing. Love stories in Konoha were no longer built on urgency or competition. Naruto had removed fear from the center of affection. He's changed the rhythm, she thought. And rhythm changes everything. In the sand, love had often been cautious, guarded by survival. In Konoha, it had once been frantic. Now, under Naruto's influence, it was becoming intentional. Naruto himself felt the change most strongly when he was alone. He sat by the river again one evening, watching reflections ripple and fade. Hinata joined him quietly, leaving space between them. Naruto-kun, she said, do you know why love feels different now? Naruto tilted his head. Because we're not at war. Hinata smiled gently. Because you showed people it's safe to stay. Quote. Naruto stared at the water. I used to think love meant holding on as tightly as possible, he admitted. Like if I loosened my grip, everything would disappear. Hinata nodded. And now I think love stays because it wants to, he said. Hinata felt warmth spread through her chest. That realization didn't belong only to Naruto. It belonged to Konoha. Across the village, Sakura walked home under lantern light, realizing she no longer feared loving slowly. Ino closed her shop without the ache of unanswered questions. Temari prepared to leave knowing she had witnessed something rare. Love stories in Konoha were no longer being written in haste. They were being written in patience. And Naruto Uzumaki, once loud, desperate, and alone, had changed them all by becoming something simple and powerful. A presence that stayed. A presence that listened. A presence that made love feel like a choice instead of a race. And Part 1 was moving steadily toward its truth. Naruto did not change love by choosing anyone. He changed love by changing how it felt to be chosen at all. The change became most visible not in grand moments, but in ordinary evenings. Couples walked side by side without rushing their steps. Conversations stretched longer, not because words were necessary, but because silence no longer felt uncomfortable. The village felt less like a place people passed through between missions and more like a place they chose to remain. Naruto did not notice these things as changes. To him, they felt like breathing. Naruto spent one evening helping an elderly couple fix a broken fence near the edge of the village. The man complained about his knees. The woman scolded him for lifting things he shouldn't. Naruto listened to both with equal seriousness. When they finished, the woman smiled at Naruto and said, "You remind me of how my husband used to look at me when we were young." Quote. Naruto blinked. "I do." She nodded. Not with excitement. With patience. Naruto didn't know what to say to that. But the words followed him long after he left. Sakura felt the impact of Naruto's presence in the hospital most strongly during moments of grief. A shinobi had lost his partner in the war's final days. He sat silently in a corner, refusing comfort, refusing words. Sakura had tried everything. Medical reassurance, logical explanations, gentle encouragement. Nothing worked. Naruto sat beside the man without speaking. Minutes passed. Then more. Eventually, the man spoke, not about the loss, but about a memory. Then another. Then the pain followed, spilling out naturally. Naruto did not interrupt. He did not guide. He stayed. Later, Sakura watched the man leave with straighter shoulders than before. She realized something quietly. Naruto didn't heal people. He gave them permission to feel. And that changed how love survived loss. Hinata noticed the change in herself. Her love for Naruto no longer felt fragile. It didn't tremble at the thought of comparison. It didn't shrink when others stood close to him. Instead, it felt grounded, rooted in understanding rather than hope alone. They walked together one evening along a familiar path. Naruto spoke casually about rebuilding efforts, about children he'd spoken to earlier, about how peaceful the sky looked. Hinata listened. At one point, she said softly, "You don't sound lonely anymore." Naruto paused. "I don't think I am," he said honestly. Hinata smiled. That single sentence felt like a quiet victory. Not over anyone else, but over the past they both carried. Ino struggled with the change longer than she expected. She was used to intensity, to sharp emotions, to relationships that burned brightly or ended loudly. Naruto's influence unsettled her because it softened everything. She caught herself enjoying calm, enjoying honesty without drama, enjoying conversations that didn't need conclusions. One afternoon, she said to Naruto, "You're ruining romance, you know." Naruto laughed. "How? You're making it peaceful," she replied. Naruto tilted his head. "Is that bad?" Ino sighed, then smiled. "No. Just unfamiliar." Temari saw the deeper pattern. Naruto's presence had shifted love in Konoha away from possession and toward partnership. People no longer spoke about what they needed from each other. They spoke about what they shared. This was dangerous in the best way. Because it meant love was no longer fueled by fear. And fear had always been easy to control. Naruto realized the full weight of it one night when he stood alone on the Hokage monument, looking down at the village lights. He thought about how desperately he had once wanted love. How loudly he had chased it. How much he had believed that being chosen meant being worthy. Now, he understood something different. Love grew best when no one was begging for it. He exhaled slowly. "I didn't change them," he thought. "I just stopped being afraid." And in that absence of fear, others found courage. Below him, Konoha rested, not perfect, not without scars, but calmer. Love stories unfolded quietly, shaped by patience rather than panic. Naruto Uzumaki had not rewritten destiny. He had rewritten atmosphere. And in doing so, he had given the village something it had never truly known before. Love that stayed. Love that healed. Love that did not rush to prove itself. And part 1 continued toward its truth. Naruto's presence had not changed who people loved. It had changed how they loved. Konoha had begun to relearn patience. Not because someone ordered it. Not because time suddenly slowed. But because Naruto Uzumaki had unknowingly removed the fear that once rushed everything. Fear of loss. Fear of being alone. Fear that love, if not claimed immediately, would vanish. Now, people waited. And waiting no longer felt like weakness. Naruto noticed it one quiet afternoon while sitting outside a small tea house near the residential district. He wasn't there for a mission or a meeting. Just resting, watching steam rise from cups and fade into the air. Two shinobi sat at a nearby table. They spoke softly, occasionally falling into silence without discomfort. There was no tension, no urgency, no sharp edge to their words. When one of them laughed, it wasn't forced. When the other reached out, it wasn't desperate. Naruto watched them for a long moment. This feels different, he thought. Not better in a dramatic way. Just calmer. Sakura saw the same thing in the hospital. Patients held hands without squeezing too tightly. Visitors stayed longer without speaking much. People cried without apologizing for it. One evening, Sakura found Naruto standing near a window, watching the sunset bleed softly across the sky. "You're becoming part of the scenery," she said. Naruto laughed. "That sounds boring." "It's not," Sakura replied. "It means people aren't bracing themselves around you anymore." Naruto considered that. "Does that change how people fall in love?" he asked. Sakura smiled gently. "It changes how they stay." Hinata felt the truth deeply. She had spent years believing love meant proving herself worthy, stronger, braver, louder. Now, standing beside Naruto, she realized she no longer felt the need to measure herself at all. They walked together through the Hyuga district one evening. Lanterns glowed softly. Footsteps echoed gently. "You don't look like you're searching anymore," Hinata said. Naruto thought about it. "I think I stopped trying to be chosen." Hinata nodded. "That makes people choose more freely." Naruto looked at her. "Does it scare you?" She shook her head. "No. It makes me feel seen." Ino confronted the change during a conversation she hadn't planned. She and Naruto were arranging flowers for a memorial when she suddenly spoke. "I used to think love had to hurt to be real," she admitted. Naruto paused, then said, "I used to think it had to be loud." Ino glanced at him. "And now? Now I think it just has to be honest," Naruto replied. Ino exhaled slowly. "That's terrifying," she said. "But also, freeing." Temari observed Konoha like a strategist studying a battlefield that no longer required war. Couples no longer clung. Friends no longer hesitated to speak. Love had stopped being a shield and started being a bridge. And Naruto, without speeches, without declarations, had shifted the emotional gravity of the village. He stabilized it, Temari realized. And stability allows choice. Quote, "Choice was dangerous. Choice meant love could no longer be blamed on fate." Naruto felt the weight of that realization late at night. He stood on his balcony, village quiet below, moonlight brushing rooftops with silver calm. "I used to believe love would save me," he thought. "But maybe love grows best when no one needs saving." He remembered every version of himself, the loud child, the desperate genin, the exhausted warrior. None of them could have done this. Only the version of him that had survived loneliness could. Below him, Konoha rested, not in silence, but in understanding. Love stories unfolded without urgency, without competition, without fear. And Naruto Uzumaki stood quietly among them, not as a hero of romance, not as the center of affection, but as the presence that made love feel safe enough to stay. Part 1 continued toward its quiet truth. Naruto did not change love by choosing differently. He changed love by teaching people that they could choose, without fear of losing themselves. Konoha no longer felt like a village waiting for the next disaster. It felt like a place learning how to live. Naruto noticed it most in the mornings. People greeted each other without rushing. Shopkeepers lingered in conversation. Shinobi returned from missions without carrying their tension like armor. There was still loss, still memory, still pain, but none of it demanded urgency anymore. And Naruto, walking through it all, felt strangely invisible. Not ignored. Just. Not disruptive. That was new. He sat near the training grounds one afternoon, watching couples spar together. Their movements were coordinated, but not aggressive. They corrected each other gently. When one stumbled, the other waited instead of pushing forward. Naruto realized something quietly unsettling. People were no longer afraid of falling behind. Love was no longer a race. Once, Naruto had believed love meant chasing, proving, insisting, refusing to give up. That belief had come from fear. Fear of being left. Fear of being unwanted. Now, standing still felt stronger than running ever had. Sakura noticed Naruto's stillness and understood it for what it was. She joined him without asking, sitting beside him on the grass. "You don't look restless anymore," she said. Naruto smiled faintly. "I didn't realize I was." "You always were," Sakura replied. "Like you were afraid that if you stopped moving, something would be taken from you." Quote. Naruto looked down at his hands. "I used to think if I wasn't loud, I'd disappear." Sakura shook her head gently. "You didn't disappear. You settled." That word stayed with him. Settled. Not stagnant. Not trapped. At peace. Hinata felt the same peace when she trained now. Her movements were precise, confident, unburdened by the old need to impress. Naruto watched from the sidelines, not correcting, not encouraging loudly, just present. When she finished, she sat beside him, breathing steady. "You don't watch like you're worried anymore," she said. Naruto nodded. "I trust you." Hinata's heart steadied at those words. Not because of romance, but because trust was deeper than affection. "I think," she said softly, "that's why love feels different around you now." Naruto glanced at her. "Different how?" "Less afraid," Hinata answered. Naruto understood immediately. Ino struggled with that same realization during a conversation she didn't expect to matter so much. She and Naruto were organizing supplies when she suddenly said, "People don't chase you anymore." Quote. Naruto looked surprised. "Is that bad?" "No," Ino replied slowly. "It's just strange." She met his eyes. "You don't make people feel like they'll lose something if they don't act fast." Naruto thought about that. "I hated feeling like that," he said. "Like time was always running out." Ino nodded. "Yeah, me too." For the first time, she realized love didn't have to be exciting to be real. It could be calm. Temari saw what others only felt. Naruto's presence had quietly removed desperation from the center of Konoha's emotional life. People no longer believed love had to save them from something. It no longer carried the weight of survival. He's done something dangerous, Temari thought. He's made love optional, not mandatory. Optional meant honest. Optional meant chosen. Naruto felt the truth of it late one night, standing by the river again. The water flowed steadily, unbothered by reflections or ripples. Hinata stood nearby, but neither felt the need to speak. After a long while, Naruto said, "I used to think love was something I needed to earn." Quote. Hinata listened. "Now I think," he continued, "love shows up when people stop being afraid of losing themselves." Hinata smiled softly. "That's why the village feels lighter." Naruto exhaled, feeling something loosen in his chest. He had once been the loneliest person in Konoha. Now, he was the reason loneliness no longer rushed love. Across the village, Sakura walked home without the ache of unfinished feelings. Ino closed her shop without longing. Temari prepared to leave knowing she had witnessed something rare. Love stories in Konoha were no longer built on urgency, sacrifice, or fear. They were built on presence. And Naruto Uzumaki, once loud, desperate, and searching, had changed them all simply by learning how to stay. Part 1 continued toward its quiet realization. Naruto did not teach Konoha how to fall in love. He taught it how to stop being afraid of love lasting. The change did not make love louder. It made it quieter. Konoha no longer felt like a place where hearts were always bracing for impact. People still argued, still disagreed, still carried old scars, but those scars were no longer sharp enough to control how they loved. There was a softness settling into the village, not fragile, but resilient. And Naruto Uzumaki walked through it like someone who finally understood his place within it. Naruto spent a morning helping at the academy, not as a guest or a hero, but as someone who had simply been asked to stay. He watched children practice basic forms, some confident, some uncertain, some clearly afraid of failing. One young girl froze halfway through her movements, tears welling up in her eyes. The instructor began to step forward, but Naruto lifted a hand gently, signaling him to wait. Naruto crouched down so he was eye level with her. "You don't look weak," he said calmly. "You look scared." The girl sniffed. "I don't want to mess up." Naruto nodded. "That just means you care." She hesitated, then finished the form, imperfect, uneven, but completed. Naruto smiled. "See, you didn't disappear." The girl laughed through her tears. The moment passed quickly, but its effect lingered. Because Naruto hadn't taught her how to fight. He had taught her that love, for herself, for effort, for growth, did not vanish when mistakes appeared. Sakura watched from the edge of the field, arms folded loosely. That had been the mistake they all made once. Believing love was conditional. Believing it existed only if you succeeded. Naruto had unlearned that belief, and now he was quietly undoing it in others. She realized something then that startled her. If Naruto had been like this back then, her own understanding of love might have been different. Not louder, not sharper, just kinder. Hinata felt the same realization bloom within her during an ordinary walk home. She passed couples speaking gently instead of whispering anxiously. She passed friends sitting close without needing excuses. She passed people who seemed unafraid to be still with one another. Naruto had not removed fear from the world. He had shown people that fear did not need to dictate closeness. Later, when she met Naruto near the training grounds, she said softly, "You've changed how people stand next to each other." Naruto blinked. "How?" "They don't lean away anymore," she said. Naruto felt warmth settle in his chest. "I know what that feels like," he replied quietly. Hinata smiled. So did she. Ino felt the shift in her own relationships. People spoke honestly in her presence now, not because she demanded it, but because honesty felt safe in Konoha again. They talked about affection without embarrassment. About uncertainty without shame. Naruto stopped by the shop later that day, helping her clean without being asked. "You ever notice," Ino said suddenly, "that people don't flirt as aggressively anymore?" Naruto laughed. "Is that a bad thing?" Quote. She thought about it. "No. It's just more real." Naruto nodded. "Real lasts longer." Ino watched him for a moment. "You didn't fix love," she said. "You slowed it down." Naruto shrugged. "Maybe it was just tired of running." Quote. Temari observed the same thing from a distance. Konoha's love stories no longer felt like battles to be won. There was no urgency to claim, no pressure to secure affection before time ran out. Naruto had removed scarcity from love. And scarcity had been its sharpest edge. He's changed the emotional economy, she thought. And people don't even realize it yet. Naruto realized it fully one evening when he sat alone on a rooftop, the village quiet beneath him. He thought of all the versions of himself that once believed love was survival. That if no one loved him, he would vanish. That if he stopped chasing, he would be left behind. And now people stayed without being asked. They loved without needing to hold tightly. They chose without fear. Naruto closed his eyes. I didn't make myself bigger, he thought. I made space. Space for patience. Space for honesty. Space for love that didn't need to hurt to feel real. Below him, Konoha rested, not because nothing could hurt it again, but because it trusted itself to endure. Love stories unfolded without panic, without desperation, without fear of time. And Naruto Uzumaki, once loud and lonely, had changed them all simply by learning how to stay present. Why? Without demanding to be needed. Part 1 continued toward its deepest truth. Naruto's presence did not teach Konoha how to love him. It taught Konoha how to love without fear. Konoha had learned how to pause. Not stop. Not hesitate. Pause. It was a subtle difference, but it changed everything. People no longer rushed to define their feelings. They allowed them to exist first. Love was no longer something that demanded action immediately, as if delay meant loss. Now, delay meant trust. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the center of this change without claiming it. Naruto noticed it during a mission debriefing. Shinobi spoke honestly about mistakes without flinching. Partners disagreed without anger. No one tried to dominate the conversation. When someone finished speaking, silence followed, not because no one cared, but because people were thinking. Naruto listened. That had always been his strength, even before he realized it. Once, he had listened because he wanted to be needed. Now, he listened because he respected what others carried. That difference shaped how people felt around him. Sakura felt it when she spoke to Naruto about her doubts. They sat outside the hospital late one evening, the air cool, the village quiet. I still question myself sometimes, she admitted. Even after everything. Quote, Naruto didn't rush to reassure her. He nodded slowly. I think that means you care. Sakura looked at him. He didn't say she was strong. He didn't say she'd be fine. He didn't take her doubt away. And somehow, that made it lighter. People used to love like they were afraid, Sakura said after a while. Afraid of being too slow. Afraid of being replaced. Naruto exhaled. I was afraid of that too. Quote, and now I think love doesn't disappear just because you let it breathe. Sakura smiled softly. She realized then that Naruto hadn't changed love by becoming wiser. He had changed it by becoming unafraid. Hinata felt that absence of fear most clearly. Her love no longer felt like something she had to protect from others. It didn't shrink when Naruto stood close to someone else. It didn't ache when silence stretched between them. It existed without tension. They stood together one evening near the river, watching the reflection of lanterns ripple across the water. You don't carry the village anymore, Hinata said quietly. Naruto glanced at her. Did I ever? Hinata nodded. In your own way. Naruto thought about it. I don't think I need to anymore. Hinata smiled. That answer told her everything. Ino experienced the change as clarity. She watched people walk into her shop no longer seeking distraction, but meaning. They bought flowers not to apologize hastily, but to express something that had been sitting quietly inside them for a while. Naruto helped her arrange a display, hands steady, movements calm. You don't stir things up anymore, Ino said. Naruto laughed. Is that a complaint? No, she replied. It's comfortable. She paused, then added, you made love less dramatic. Quote, Naruto shrugged. Drama usually comes from fear. Ino nodded slowly. Fear of losing. Fear of not being chosen. Those fears no longer ruled Konoha. Temari observed the village like a strategist watches a transformed battlefield. There were still conflicts. Still misunderstandings. Still pain. But love was no longer used as leverage. No one clung to it as proof of worth. Naruto's presence had made affection something that could be offered, not demanded. That's the rarest kind of power, she thought. Naruto realized the full shape of it one quiet night when he walked alone through the village. He passed couples walking without holding hands, yet clearly together. Friends sitting in silence without discomfort. People parting ways without anxiety, trusting that connection didn't vanish when distance appeared. He remembered the boy he used to be. The boy who thought love was something you chased until your legs gave out. The boy who believed being chosen was the same as being worthy. Naruto stopped beneath a streetlight, breath steady. I was never unlovable, he realized. I was just afraid of being left. And that fear, once released, had changed everything. Konoha rested that night not because all wounds had healed, but because no one was rushing love anymore. Love was allowed to be quiet. Allowed to be patient. Allowed to be honest. Naruto Uzumaki had not rewritten fate. He had rewritten the pace of the heart. And Part 1 continued toward its quiet conclusion. Naruto's presence did not make love stronger by intensity. It made love stronger by removing fear from its foundation. Konoha had begun to trust quiet moments again. Not every silence needed to be filled. Not every feeling demanded immediate action. The village, once shaped by urgency and survival, was slowly learning that some things grew stronger when left undisturbed. Naruto Uzumaki felt that truth most clearly when he stopped trying to understand it. Naruto spent a long afternoon sitting outside a small home near the edge of the village, helping a couple rebuild a damaged roof. They worked without hurry, passing tools back and forth, occasionally pausing to talk about nothing in particular. At one point, the woman laughed softly and said, "You know, we used to argue all the time when we were younger. We thought passion meant noise." Naruto glanced at her, curious. "And now?" he asked. She smiled, looking at her husband. "Now we talk slower. Listen more. It lasts longer that way." Naruto didn't respond, but the words stayed with him. He had once believed love needed proof. Now he was learning that love needed space. Sakura recognized the shift when she noticed fewer emotional emergencies in the hospital. People still came with wounds, physical and emotional, but they no longer panicked at the idea of being alone with feelings. They talked. They waited. They trusted that pain could be shared without being rushed into resolution. Naruto passed through the corridor one evening, nodding to staff, stopping briefly to listen when someone spoke. "You're not fixing anything," Sakura said quietly when he paused near her. Naruto smiled. "I don't think everything needs fixing." Sakura studied him for a moment. "That's why things are healing," she said. Hinata felt that healing inside herself. Her love no longer felt like something fragile she had to protect from the world. It didn't tremble at uncertainty or shrink in silence. It existed comfortably, grounded in mutual understanding rather than expectation. She and Naruto walked together through the village at dusk, their steps naturally in rhythm. "You don't seem afraid of being misunderstood anymore," she said softly. Naruto thought for a moment. "I think I stopped being afraid of understanding myself." Quote. Hinata smiled gently. "That changes how people love you," she said. Naruto looked at her. "Does it change how you love?" Hinata met his gaze, calm and steady. "It makes it easier." Ino experienced the change through honesty. People no longer came to her shop just to impress someone else or to cover mistakes hastily. They came to express feelings they had thought about, not reacted to. Naruto helped her close up one evening, sweeping fallen petals without speaking. "You're not confusing people anymore," Ino said suddenly. Naruto laughed softly. "Was I doing that before?" Ino nodded. "Yeah, but not on purpose." She paused. "Now you make people feel like they can choose without pressure." Quote. Naruto leaned the broom against the wall. "That's all I ever wanted." Ino smiled, realizing that clarity had replaced confusion without anything being lost. Temari saw what others felt. Konoha's love stories no longer revolved around urgency or possession. They were no longer shaped by fear of the next war, the next goodbye, the next loss. Naruto's presence had taught people that love did not need to be loud to be real. It needed to be steady. Naruto realized the depth of it one quiet night when he stood by the river alone. The water flowed steadily, unbothered by what passed through it. Reflections appeared and vanished without resistance. I used to think love was something that could leave me, he thought. But maybe love stays when it doesn't feel trapped. Quote. He remembered how desperately he had once chased acknowledgement. Now, acknowledgement came without pursuit. Not because he demanded it, but because he no longer needed it to feel whole. Across Konoha, love stories continued, quietly, patiently, honestly. Some would grow, some would change, some would remain unspoken but understood. And Naruto Uzumaki, once loud with longing, had become the reason love no longer rushed itself. Part 1 continued toward its truth. Naruto did not change love by being chosen. He changed love by teaching people that they did not need fear to hold it together. Konoha did not realize the moment it changed. There was no announcement, no celebration, no single scene that marked the difference. The village simply began to feel lighter, as if something invisible had finally loosened its grip. People spoke more slowly, listened more carefully, loved without the urgency that once came from fear. And at the heart of that change stood Naruto Uzumaki. Not as a hero demanding recognition, not as a savior chasing affection, but as a presence that remained steady when everything else had learned to rush. Naruto walked through the village without the weight he once carried. He no longer wondered if he belonged. He no longer feared being left behind. The love around him did not press in or pull at him. It existed quietly, respectfully, like a shared understanding rather than a demand. Sakura found peace not in intensity, but in growth. She no longer measured love by how much it hurt or how hard it fought to survive. Ino learned that clarity could be more comforting than excitement, and that letting go did not mean losing something important. Temari returned to the sand knowing she had witnessed something rare. Love freed from desperation. And Hinata walked beside Naruto beneath the evening sky, not as someone waiting to be chosen, but as someone who had always understood how to stay. Their bond did not need declarations. It did not need urgency. It existed because neither of them was afraid of silence anymore. Naruto stopped near the river one last time, watching the water flow past stones worn smooth by time. I used to think love was something I had to chase, he said quietly. Hinata listened. Now I know, he continued, love grows when no one is afraid of losing themselves. Hinata smiled softly. That's why Konoha feels different. Quote. There were no promises spoken. No claims made. Just truth acknowledged and respected. Naruto Uzumaki had once changed the world by fighting. Now, he had changed it by staying. By listening. By removing fear. By allowing love to breathe. And in doing so, he did not just change the love stories of Konoha. He changed how love was lived. Thank you.